Welcome back. Welcome in. This is Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Son of a gun, part of the Paramount Podcast Network. Chris, I'm rusty, I guess. Not in the routine. Here I am goofing up the name of the podcast. It's Monday. The game was on Thursday. Saturday was just kind of without a game, and I don't know what you did, or I was not near a television, but catching up on things. And as I look around the Big 12 and college football, I know West Virginia's 0-1. Kind of don't hate the situation that West Virginia's in relative to where a lot of 0-1 teams are after 1 week. My first question to you on a day that we'll get into subscriber questions. 8th place team in the Big 12 in the preseason. One Saturday or one Thursday, I get that. Definitely not selling stock right now, right?
No, I think, I said in post game, I was teetering between 7-5, 8-4. I kind of leaned towards 8-4 because it heard so many good things about JT Daniels leading up right before that first game. And what switched from 7-5 to 8-4 was saying that I think maybe West Virginia is going to pull off that win over Pitt. They didn't, but that still doesn't change my thoughts on this team. I think 7-5 is very realistic. I don't think if West Virginia goes 7-3 the rest of the way, I think that's a great job. And it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't absolutely stun me if they pulled that off. So I don't think there's any way of really kind of being like, well, this is a lost season for West Virginia. Let me throw something out at you real quick. Like, because you're talking, big picture here. Big 12, where West Virginia stands, what's coming up, what to take from 1 week. Pitt was ranked 17th coming to this game, right? That was what it was in the AP poll. Obviously, the rankings don't really go past 25. I mean, there's others receiving votes, so you could probably get out to like 35 or so. I'm going to use ESPN's Football Power Index, since that ranks all 131 teams. Would you like to take a stab at a number of where the next toughest opponent for a Big 12 team was in week 1?
I looked at the schedule because there's only one 0-1 team in the Big 12 right now.
And it is West Virginia. That's right.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of Power 5 teams that are 0-1 with a non-conference loss. And then you look at some of them like it's Notre Dame, Ohio State, pretty good. Virginia Tech, Old Dominion, not very good. So you have a Pitt game right there in the middle. I was thinking, well, that's not too bad. But then I did look at the schedule, and it was pretty thin for the Big 12. Would Central Michigan be the answer?
Central Michigan is the answer. It was a toss-up. It's close between Central Michigan and Colorado. But on that scale, that ESPN FPI scale, Football Power Index, from 1 to 131, where do you think Central Michigan is? Just throw a number out there.
95.
Close. Yeah. Central Michigan, 87. Wow. Colorado, 96. Those are the only two opponents in the top 100. 110, 120. I mean, like some of these teams that were being played, UTEP is 119, UL Monroe, 124. You go around, and then, obviously I think it was like 5. Those two, Central Michigan, Colorado, 87, 96, 119, 124 with UTEP and UL Monroe. And then I believe it was 5 FCS opponents, which do not get ranked in the top 131. So that was the rest of the Big 12 schedule. And so I don't think any West Virginia fan should be ashamed of being 0-1 when everybody else is 1-0 right now.
My final question to you before we start. This is 3 straight years, so it will be 3 straight years. They start with a road game against a Power 5. Nobody in the country will do that. So just one team that goes 21, 22, 23 on the road against a Power 5. That's West Virginia. I know that these things are done years in advance, and I'm trying to remember how many of these Alliance is responsible for as I look at them, but some, not all. But openers against Power 5s, that's rough. Openers on the road, that's harder. Openers on a road in succession, and let's face it, your coach could probably be on firmer ground. If you had to do it over again, would you do this? or would you break up your Power Fives? I know you really can't do much with the road home splits, but let's just say it's opening with 3 straight Power Fives. Would you like to get that FCS game in? Would you rather get a group of 5 early on? Because it's also part of a schedule where they play 2 Power Fives. That's for 22, 23, and 24. I believe in 25 that streak snaps because they play a road game at Ohio, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah,
And
25.
then the next year they play a road game at ECU. Yeah, here we go. At ECU.
Originally scheduled for what, 2007? Something like that.
Right.
How long ago was that game?
Yeah, so now you're not playing 2 Power Fives, but you're playing a road group of 5, which whatever. That's not ideal, but I guess that's better than maybe a road Power 5. But I don't know. I guess maybe not a question, but what do you just think about the non-conference? And I know it looks totally different when you got a coach of 17-19 and you have fans who would much rather be 1-0 than 0-1, but also understand that 0-1 is more likely when you're lining up opponents like this at the beginning of the season. But I just feel like maybe you don't see a Twitter video from the head coach on Sunday afternoon if they're 1-0 because they drew up Towson. I just feel like if they could rearrange the pieces, they would here. They would do this a little bit differently.
And I think you've already seen it because I think, one, if you're playing 2 Power Fives, your discussion about schedule and order here comes down to, do you want to open with the cupcake, for instance, the FCS school or the weaker group of 5 school, and then you end up with 11 straight games against Power 5, no break in there. You're going back-to-back non-conference Power 5s and then straight into Big 12 schedule? Or do you want to open with a Power 5, get a little break with an FCS school and come back to Power 5, or go Power 5, then FCS to try to get a break? That's a tough question, but I think we've got our answer about how they feel about the 2 non-conference Power 5s, because Pitt, Virginia Tech, Penn State, Pitt, Penn State, Pitt. These are future non-conference schedules for West Virginia. Now, Pitt, Virginia Tech. Next year, Penn State, Pitt. 2024, Penn State, Pitt. 2025, there's some Robert Morris and at Ohio. 2026, UT Martin and at ECU. 2027, VMI and Ohio. So I think you're going to see, there's a lot of talk about, hey, look at us playing 2 Power 5s. Look at us. We're tough. And I was like, okay, maybe that was not the best idea. And switching back a little bit to 2 group of 5s or a group of 5 and a FCS to go with that big Power 5 game in the non-conference.
Yeah, and to support your point here, why those days are over, one, no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
Why should West Virginia? I'm not being rude there, but like they don't need to distinguish themselves apart from getting wins, right? So don't go with the schedule that you don't have to play. But also all these openers against Power 5s, Pitt, Penn State, and then it goes away and then it comes back, Alabama, Tennessee. You get to 30, 31, and 32. So forgive me here for a second, but that's Pitt, and Pitt. September 7, September 6, September 11. Those are quite likely week 2 games. I cannot see them opening with a Power 5 and then playing Pitt in the second week. So I think you're going to see a group of 5 or an FCS there, and then the Power 5 will be Pitt, and there'll be an FCS or a group of 5 after that. There's just no way they're going FCS, Power 5, or Power 5, group of 5. There's no way they're playing back-to-back Power 5s in September, because even now they don't. It's Pitt, Towson, Tech. They don't have a choice this year because of Kansas. I understand that. But even next year, Penn State, Duquesne, Pitt. Penn State, Albany, Pitt. Robert Morris, Ohio, Pitt. That doesn't count. But you're just seeing that they have it broken up, that a group of 5, an FCS, a Power 5, a group of 5, an FCS, a group of 5, or Power 5, sorry. But I don't think they're going to be opening with Power 5s really after that 2028 season, because that's Tennessee. Next year is Ohio, and then the 3 Pitt games I mentioned. I just think they're going to have a little easier one to get the season going there.
Yeah, and I do think there was a time, because I remember this discussion when they started planning this out, and it was almost like this pride that West Virginia was first on the frontier here, moving forward. This is the way college football was going, because at that time there was this new or renewed emphasis on strength of schedule. hey, the college football playoff guys, hey, we'd rather you go 10-2 and play a ridiculous schedule than 12-0 and not play anybody. And West Virginia started lining up these Power 5 games in the non-conference, and then it became evident that really college football playoff people don't give a crap about that, so it didn't matter. And then of course, now I don't know if they foresaw this move to 12, because now it's definitely you don't want to, wear yourself out in the non-conference, or maybe you could argue you should, because the non-conference isn't going to matter as much anymore once you get to this 12 team playoff.
I wonder if there'll be some buyouts in the future.
Yeah,
we'll see. Don't know.
That ECU game, or are they going to keep that one?
Oh my God.
Just kick it down the road 15 years and then just pay them.
Like, that is legitimately an Ed Pass-along game.
Yeah.
And it's 2026. Like, he was involved in that scheduling that game, and here we are so many years later too. So not too many 0-1s in the Power 5 right now from a non-conference game, but call me crazy, I think that you probably feel better if you're West Virginia than if you're LSU or maybe even Utah, where, listen, all kind of dramatic, chaotic endings, but hey, you made your field goal and you didn't throw a in the end zone game-losing interception there too. Stayed in there with number 17 in a road game, a rivalry game. Probably a lot to feel good about, which I guess, Chris, will transition into our questions here from subscribers. We're going to go in depth on a couple and kind of speed around a few more to make sure we touch as many bases as we can. A lot of these questions, for example, CJ Donaldson, we have discussed, we have written about, and I'm sure we'll talk about and write about some more. So don't be offended if we don't get to it here. The content's coming, I promise, but maybe not the time and the place right now. Otherwise, fair game questions from you to Chris and I. What do you say we get started?
Let's do it. First one from Mountie 06. We'll start it right off the top. Does the WVU Pitt attendance plus the TV ratings move some eyeballs in the ACC leadership? To recap, before we answer, what the largest crowd in Pittsburgh sports history, that means the biggest crowd for Pittsburgh, I guess Pirates games, Steelers games, Panthers games, any of those games, largest one ever. And then TV ratings, it was I can't remember the exact, was it 3.1 million, I think, and it was the most viewers for a Thursday night game in 5 years, the most viewers for any weekday night game in 4 years. Big numbers, impressive numbers, something for both teams to be proud of. But does it matter?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. The spectacle was awesome. The game was very good. It was made for TV and it delivered. Like, they moved that game from a Saturday to a Thursday so they could showcase the rivalry and kind of cross their fingers that you get something competitive. Everything clicked. Attendance was terrific. The teams put on a show. The coaches, I think, make this a little bit more anticipated for next year because of their behavior before, during, and after the game. Everything that game was supposed to be before, during, and after is it, including screaming matches between administrators and the different teams and the one team taunting the other. That's healthy stuff for a rivalry. However, that game is not going to be coming off an 11-year hiatus. It's not going to be on a Thursday night. It's not going to be the first game of the season every time they play it. It's not. So I do not want to take away from everything that game accomplished and all the boxes that it checked, which it was supposed to do. Kudos to both sides, both teams, ESPN, so on and so forth. But that set of circumstances is not transferable or repeatable. It's not going to be there every year. And if you're in the ACC going, man, we can get 3.1 million every time that we put these two teams together. Do you think so? Do you think you're going to get 3.15 million on the ACC network in October or on Thanksgiving weekend or whatever, right? You're going to have, again, a hiatus Thursday night showcase game. That's a hard set of circumstances to repeat. So I don't think that it moves the needle. I'm sure they're very happy with it, but I don't think that they go, you know what, we need to change our thinking and extend an invitation to a school that we have generationally overlooked just because of a Thursday night.
Should West Virginia take the approach that the Big East took and some of these, group of five conferences have taken since then, of We'll take all your Thursday night inventory. If you move us to the ACC, we'll play a different team every Thursday night if you put us into ACC.
Yeah, I think the Big 12 is probably going to be doing that. And, well, no, I think it's funny, but it's true because a couple of reasons. One, they're going to have more teams than television slots, right? Like if you it's going to be hard to get 6 of their TV slots on a Saturday. And if it is, one of those is going to get obscured. And it's going to be probably a good team that's not going to be happy about getting put on ESPN Plus, right? So if you can give them a Thursday night stage, that's fun and that'll work. So I think if you find out the one team that has the Halloween costume, so to speak, it's West Virginia. They played Thursday nights before. They've been good at it. It's been good for them. So give it a whirl and see what happens. This one is just because of the schedule, the way it works out. The Tech game is curious to me. That doesn't have to be a Thursday night game, and the Baylor game sure as heck doesn't have to be a Thursday night game. So is West Virginia saying yes to these invitations because it's trying to reassert itself as some sort of a brand, possibly? But is the Big 12 doing the same? Probably, because again, they're going to have to find TV slots. They're going to have to find appeal for TV partners, and without the NFL games on, regular old cable now, ESPN's going to have inventory. Like that contract with Amazon goes for a while, and ESPN's going to be like, what are we going to do on Thursday nights? Like cornhole or West Virginia against Oklahoma State, West Virginia against Cincinnati. I think that's something the Big 12 should lean into because there's going to be an opening, and you're going to have to find a way to appease TV partners who want to give you something, but you have to give them something too.
Should we put out a disclaimer that you got rejected from the Cornhole League, so that pot shot from you might have had some bias to it?
I definitely nuked the bridge there, didn't I? Sorry, guys.
On a related note to the first question, JCar304 had a two-parter, one for you, one for me. As everybody knows, Mike was there in person in the press box at the game. I was at home base watching from afar. Mike, how was the environment in person compared to other road games you've attended? Best atmosphere since pre-COVID? ?
Absolutely that last part. Absolutely. For whatever reason, this is one that the fans are always going to get up about. You hear a lot of people just kind of like sandbagging Pitt's fans because it's just a thing you do when you have nothing else to do, whatever. I was at the first Pitt game many, many years ago when Wannstedt came in to be the head coach. And I remember like walking from, I guess like I parked maybe like near the Trib building by PNC to where the press box is, which is as far away as you can get from where you park, but that's another tangent. And it was pretty much the same trip for me this time, but the experience was similar in that. So I'm bookending really two different eras, I guess you would say. But like, I just felt like there was a greater energy here because, they were playing Notre Dame in that first Pitt game. Pretty big opponent. This one was West Virginia, pretty big opponent. But like, I just felt like it was more electric and people had been looking forward to this for a long, long time. And there was a hope back when Wannstedt came in. It's kind of a reality now with Narduzzi. Say what you like about it, but he's got an ACC title and his team is, a top 15, top 20 team this season. So people can buy what they're selling and are buying what they're selling a lot better now. And then you kind of have West Virginia where that's even when they're hopeless or their hope is low, they buy into the program. So you kind of had these two dynamics at play. And by the way, they hate each other inside the stadium and outside the stadium. And then like there was this dynamic about, is it going to be 75-25? Like some I don't even know what the report was, but like some very flimsy marketing thing turned into like a talking point in ESPN.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember. Sorry to interrupt, but I saw the clip. Yeah, it was like a ticket selling company, and based on their data, which I don't even know what that data is, like the mailing addresses of the people or the billing addresses of the people purchasing the tickets are more in West Virginia or something. I'm not sure. Said that they were expecting it to be 75-25 West Virginia for the game.
Well, Chris, I have a master's in integrated marketing communications, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I do. So possibility here. When I was doing projects in school, you were trying to figure out how to quantify and qualify, I guess, too, who your subscribers are or who your visitors are on your website. And this is all kind of really boring internet mumbo jumbo, but you can have Pitt fans who live in the Morgantown area code, and you could have WVU fans who live in Pitt. So using that type of location isn't great. Like geolocations are not great for that stuff. So what you do is you try to attach a survey, or you make people fill out their profile. So if you sign up for an account, hey, who's your favorite college team? Pitt, West Virginia, Ohio State, whatever. Or when you submit your ticket order, hey, which team is going to win, or who do you like the most? There's ways to get people to identify their allegiances, but so you might have been able to really have people raise their hand. Hi, I'm a Pitt fan. Hey, I'm a West Virginia fan. But how many people did that?
Right.
Let's say 100, right? There's 70,000 seats, and if 75 of that 100 were West Virginia fans, are we saying that 75% of the fans in the stadium were West Virginia fans? No. So it's very unscientific. But my point being, like, that became a thing. Like, that was a tinderbox for the head coach, for the Pitt fans, for the Pitt players. Like, that was something they talked about a lot, similar to like the 98% wrong from the Fiesta Bowl many, many years ago. So everything leading up to the game was kind of like the perfect storm for what happened inside. And by the way, the game was good. You had a lot of the feisty stuff that's supposed to happen between rivals, dramatic, memorable, all that stuff too. But you could tell the fans were competing against each other. You really could. And that to me was cool. Like, that place was swaying. Like, I don't remember it swaying before. I've been there before with huge plays and huge reactions. Like when, West Virginia just embarrassed Pitt one year, where I think Slayton had 200 yards rushing and Pat White had 200 yards rushing, and just crazy stuff was happening. But like, the West Virginia fans took over and were just having a ball. It was so much louder because both teams were in this game. And that in between third quarter, fourth quarter with Sweet Caroline was really cool. I don't know who wins. I don't know who had more fans. It's really hard for me to say because I don't really pay attention to it, and I can only see half the stadium. But that was really loud. Again, I don't remember the press box ever swaying before. That was cool for me. And then just most memorable for me is going to be the tip pass off of Wheaton's fingers, and it got silent just briefly. And then all of a sudden, the crowd equal one side up and roar, one side from roar to groan really quickly. And that's when you have a full stadium that's invested in a game. And that's missing from a lot of stuff, whether it's just plain old West Virginia games because they haven't been in all these like high drama, high profile games that they're going to win, to, unfortunately for West Virginia, it went the wrong way, but a significant moment that's going to live on for a long time, 5, 10, 20 years from now. People are like, remember that game? Yeah, there might have been 80% West Virginia fans. There might have been 50-50. I don't know. But I remember that one specific play where the ball goes out the receiver's fingers, return for a touchdown. And it's just like a quintessential experience there, just in a one moment in time. And those are cool things when a crowd is invested in it, watching the game that much, and just knows that, man, something big just happened. Or even in that situation, something big is about to happen. Everybody's waiting for something there, and everybody delivered.
And to answer the from home part, because there was something strikingly similar to what you just described with the tip six, if you will. The very first drive, I think, was it the second or third play where Daniels fumbled the snap, picked it up, and then threw the completion. And you could hear from home, like on the TV, just the swaying of emotions, this roller coaster of like half of the stadium being like getting excited, and half the, like you just said, half of them getting excited, half of them groaning when the ball dropped from Daniel's hands to the ground, and then him picking up and throwing it, and the same people that were excited are now groaning, and the same people that were groaning are now screaming because it was a first down. And I think I tweeted right at that moment, and again, that was the second or third play of the game, like, oh, this is going to be good, because you could just tell that the entire stadium, both sides, both fan bases were just into it. And so I'm glad to hear you could. Obviously, I assumed you could tell there in person as well, but it was intense.
As it should be.
Yep. And yeah, which just makes it all the sadder. And again, something else I said, like, as it was happening, because leading up to pregame, again, you were there and doing stuff pregame, and I was watching the game day, and all they're talking about, and they're doing the voiceovers, and about how I believe the exact phrase was, rivalry and hatred and distance, or geography matters. I remember they said geography matters, and I'm just laughing. Like, is ESPN really promoting tradition and geography in college football and how it, quote, matters, and at the very same time doing absolutely everything possible to completely undermine that? Like, it was blowing my mind, and it was happening right in front of your faces. They say all this stuff and do all those things for that one night of the year, and like I said, the other 364 days of the year, right back to undermining everything they said matters on Thursday night. So it's whatever, but it certainly seemed like it mattered on Thursday night. That's for sure. Next question. We spent a long time on that one. That was a good one. WVU Oda asks, excluding JT Daniels, what person or thing were you most pleased with at Pitt? I'm also going to exclude CJ Donaldson.
Yeah, please. Dante Stills was awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if that came across on TV if they mentioned him. He's a marquee guy they may have yet, but he was controlling his area and he was getting attention. He was making things happen for other people, but like they were trying to stop him, they couldn't. He worked really well with about 45 snaps. And to Andrew Jackson's credit, he wanted to get his guys about 60% of snaps, and he did on a game where maybe he wanted to stretch them out. Like there weren't a ton of snaps in that game. His starters could have played more, but he had a plan. He went with it, and Stills did look good up to including, he's chasing the quarterback on the last drive of the game there too. So, or last like 4-minute drive of the game. So good. That worked out well for him. And then a thing, just kind of briefly, I'm okay with special teams. Like I think that you can definitely see that there's an investment there. It's paying off with personnel and some planning. Some weird stuff, mostly on kickoff return. If that's the worst thing, and it didn't really hurt him too much, it almost did, but that could be cleaned up too. So for something, it wasn't great. It didn't, it did make a game-changing play, but it wasn't anything where you go, man, their special teams are fixed. But they put a ton of time into it, and you can start to see some rewards there. Things look very casual, very as planned, and infrequently that's the case, especially in an opener.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Dante Stills pick. My stance after the game was the entire defensive line was kind of just, are we talking about, it was only a couple years ago that West Virginia's defense was top 5 in the nation in, I can't remember, was it total defense or scoring defense, one of the two. And a lot of that had to deal with the defensive line. And I think this defensive line, not the rest of the defense, but the defensive line alone, might be better than that was 2 years ago because it is deep. Everybody was making an impact. As you mentioned, Stills was in the backfield. Martin had a sack. Lockhart had a tackle for loss. Alston, I don't think he had a tackle for loss or a sack, but he was in the backfield several times. I'm looking at his PFF right now. He had 3 pressures on the quarterback. No sacks, no hits, no tackles for loss, but he was back there. He was in there. He was causing havoc. There was one play, I think it was 3rd and long. And, I think the camera focused on Stills chasing the quarterback, but Edward Vesterinen was right there too. It was the two of them chasing the quarterback down. So, and I think I already mentioned Sean Martin. He had one. Jordan Jefferson, there was a 3rd down play near the Pitt's own goal line. He's blowing his man up all the way back into the backfield, which leads to a tackle for loss. So you just go up and down that defensive line as a whole. Like every single one of them contributed. Every single one of them was making plays in that game. So that's a very positive sign because you cannot rely on 3 or 2. You have to have more than that, and they do. And that's why I think this defensive line could be the best it's been in a long time.
No, that I'm not sure how much Asani Redwood will play immediately this year, but he's definitely in the plans to play. He didn't play, and then Jalen Thornton, Hammond, Russell, and Zaki Lawton did not travel. And again, I don't know how much those 3 will play, but they're certainly in queue to play. It's 4 more guys who can give them snaps too, so that's going to be a competitive situation. They have a chance to roll in some numbers, and probably whether it's the 13th game or the 2nd game, they should be well armed, I would think, to have fresh bodies and able bodies out there.
Yep. Next question, going from the good to the bad. Blue and gold 81. All secondary for me. Most of it mentioned in other questions, but let's go in order. Woods injury update. Let's start there. Anything new? I mean, I posted a big update for our VIP members on the board. Was it yesterday? Over the weekend sometime? Anything new since then? Have we gotten any word, or we think that's probably coming Tuesday?
Probably coming Tuesday. I've heard that it's not like a major deal. I'm not sure he'll play, but it wasn't broken or anything like that from what I understand. In a boot, moving around in the huddles even during the game. I think if it's a guy who needs surgery, he's probably on crutches or maybe he's off his feet on the sideline. On the sideline of a live college football game, that was a good sign. I think it's hard to pull a whole lot from that beyond the fact that they weren't trying to preserve him and keep him in bubble wrap because he needed surgery or something. So if that's an ankle sprain or something like that, not great, but he can get back sooner, I would think, than later. But anything official, no. But I can't change or add anything to your report from the other day, as everything is kind of lined up with that as well.
Yeah, I guess this is a good time to promo the VIP package right now. I think it ends either tonight or noon tomorrow or something. 75% off. It's the best deal of the year. We do it. Usually only do it once, which is usually the Black Friday deal. That they decided to run it for season opener. So if you haven't joined VIP, like I know we always say this, now's the time. No, this is literally the time. It will not get better than this deal. What does it work out to? $25, $26 for the entire year of VIP coverage. And that our VIP members had the details on this the other night. Woods came back out from that injury. And he got carted off field, came back out from the injury, was running on the sidelines, but I was told was limping badly, quote for those two words. And they had him stop, and then he tried again, and they had him stop, told him to just cut it out, and then went back to the locker room at halftime, came back out with a boot that you noted. Like you said, and then I was told afterwards that he was in good spirits, and I don't think someone's going to be, one, in good spirits, two, as you mentioned, trotting up and down the sideline trying to get it to run. Like if you have an ACL tear or a broken ankle or whatever, you're not running twice on the sideline trying to get back in the game. You're booted up, crutched up, off to the side. So, whatever time frame would be just guessing at this point, but it sounds like it's not season ender, so that's good. What's the pecking order at corner? Is Andrew Wilson-Lamp injured, or did Mumu Ben Wahad pass him? Is Spells close to ready?
Yeah, I don't know what to tell people here, but like if people say, well, what's the answer on Spells or Wilson-Lamp? You got it, which is that Mumu Ben Wahad, at least in the estimation of the coaches, is above them both. How long? Don't know. Like these competitions aren't cemented just because the season started. Like you could see flip-flopping all the time now too. I don't have a great answer, and honestly, it didn't come up in the post game about why did Mumu bin Wahad play 7 snaps and no one else did. So I get the hindsight now, and we can ask about that on Tuesday. But listen, they're going to either have to hope that McCormick gets better or that they can stopgap some of those snaps. But it's going to be an interesting first half for sure because we don't know about Wood, but if he's not playing, you're starting Rashad Ajayi and question mark. Don't know how they do that. So I don't think they heat up Jalen Shelton because he was a safety until not too long ago. So that means it's probably going to come down to Ben Wahad, Wilson-Lamp, and Spells. Ben Wahad did play. Wilson-Lamp was on special teams, and Spells, to my knowledge, did not play but was there. So they were talking about Spells as like a nickel corner, like a third or fourth cornerback late in camp. Could he answer the questions about whether he could contribute or not? Maybe he didn't. Like they didn't say, hey, he's coming along and he's going to be a guy that said, hey, he's a redshirt or he's a true freshman who could play and not redshirt if he can be an extra defender for us. Maybe he's not there yet. Doesn't mean he won't. Ben Wahad's been around a little bit longer. He was here in the spring. It might just be that they, in that situation, said quick transition, who can we get out there right away to go? Maybe more surprising than it was Ben Wahad than Wilson-Lamp, as opposed to Spells. But I don't have an explanation for that, and I think it's something we'll probably have to mine on Tuesday.
I'll throw it out there, although he did not have the best game on Thursday night, and this is going to be kind of bleeding into the next part of the question here, but Marcus Floyd played cornerback all throughout his career until he got to West Virginia. So just throwing it out there.
Yeah, it seems dramatic for one half of the second game of the year, don't you think?
That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
Just go all the way, Mike. All the way. But the last part of Blue and Gold 81's question was, what did you think of Floyd and Cox? Again, I think Floyd did a rough day out there. He's going to, and the television announcers called him out big time on it, on the final not the final touchdown, but the final offensive touchdown for Pitt. Really not even trying to tackle on that play, and kind of just lackadaisically waltzed over towards the sideline and tried to kind of gently shove the guy out of bounds. And instead he goes in for the touchdown. He's credited with 2 missed tackles on the day, according to PFF. Had a terrible coverage grade. Was the third lowest down regular for the game. No, 4th lowest. Everybody had a bad game apparently. in that secondary. So just not a great day for him. Cox, and he's right there with Floyd with the bad PFF grades. I was trying to think. I felt like he was out of position a couple times. That was just my eyeballs there. But he didn't play that much. I thought he might play a little more, but Mallinger has had a nice day. So maybe that's part of the reason why.
I think Cox is on every special team.
Yeah. Well, I think on defense, he only had 16 snaps. I think.
Sure. I think I guarantee he played more on special teams. He was probably north of 20 snaps on special teams.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not on PAT field goal, but I think everything else he's involved in, or it seemed to me like he was. Just a different player than Mallinger in that game, especially. I think they were asking Mallinger to run and cover the slot guy a lot, and he had some shaky moments, but that's going to be kind of a position they have to nurture and develop throughout the year, I think.
I don't disagree. Moving on down. Next question. A friendly WVU fan. Neil Brown came out on Sunday afternoon with a very different video pleading with the fan base not to give up on the team. Was there any internal feedback, calls to the ticketing office, or otherwise that would cause this odd response from Brown? Let me start with this. I do feel it's odd. Do you feel it was an odd response?
If they got smushed on Thursday, I think it might make sense. Like if they really think that they're good and they get beat like 31-10, okay, then maybe you're like, you know what, we gotta get this thing back on track. But every one of their defenses and justifications after the game was that they're close. You know, they almost won the game. They played really hard. Like they were really proud of their performance apart from losing. And then to have this video just makes me think, like, did they want to make sure people hear the message? You know, do they want to make sure that they're getting their message out there? And I think that's important too, because to lose an opener that was highly anticipated and then to come home 0-1 against Kansas is not going to make people terribly excited. I would say they're probably really, really happy it's a night game, though, because if this is a noon game, I wonder what the attendance would be. But it's a home opener, too, so they really shouldn't have to be rigged to get attendance there. But I just think the fact that they're 0-1, they lost to a rival, and to be honest, kind of familiar frustrations that you wonder, has anything changed, anything different? Let me wait and see. And that might not be for a while, and it might not be Saturday at 6 p.m. So I can certainly understand why they want to do it. It just seems strange to me because they left the locker room area Thursday night convinced, and maybe convincing others, that that was a good performance and that just stay tuned. This team is going to pick you up more than it lets you down this year. We could parse the words and maybe how he said as opposed to what he said, but I'm sure it's a guy who really, really wants it and knows that the story could be very different. And I think he wants to make sure that people believe what he's selling. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that when I say odd, I just felt my thought was I feel like I have a pulse of what's going on with the fans, and I thought it was a little early. Like I just didn't think things were that desperate at this point. It's one loss to a top 20 team. Yes, in brutal fashion, but it should tell you that, hey, I don't think West Virginia played, their best. I think they played fine, but there were some big mistakes, some big moments in that game that, were just silly little things that are just part of sports. And that's why it ended up being a loss. And I just don't think it was, it just shocked me to see it. Like, wow, this is almost like, are they desperate here? Because I think this team is good. And I think they're going to be fine. And I think the fans will realize that in the coming weeks. But
yeah, but then bookend it 4 or 5 weeks from now where Brown can kind of be, I told you so. I told you we had a good thing. I'm glad you guys stuck with us. So preemptive strike perhaps. And again, nothing wrong with that. But he's got to be right.
Yep. WV Blessed asks, if you could have one transfer back from last year's squad, who would help this team the most?
It's a great question because the quantity of transfers, and I think we've also gotten to the quality, it really makes you think, because there are also some areas out there where you're thinking, boy, they're kind of thin here. They could use something here. There's some interesting questions in the bag. This one I thought was like particularly different and really kind of made me think. And I think the answer is kind of revealing here. Do you want to go first?
I mean, my pick was Jackie Matthews. I think we talked about it before, and I've said it for months now. I thought that, even though there were some very good players leaving, he was maybe the biggest because he had some versatility. He was very good on the field. He could play corner. He could play safety. He could be that spear and I felt that Spear was very important. So I think, even before the secondary issues reared their ugly heads last night, I was picking Matthews, and then after what I saw last night, I feel even more strongly about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of candidates here that you go, well, obviously the answer is blank. And I'm not sure that's it, because like they don't, like, for example, like Akeem Mesidor, that would be a popular one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like they're okay on the defensive line. Like I don't think it's going to hurt them so much not having him. Um, I'm just trying to think of other ones here, like Winston Wright. Like they need some punch at receiver for sure, and that might be the answer. But I don't know, like how great was he as a receiver last year? I'm not sure. I do think that he would be inspired by the quarterback play. So then I started to think about receivers, like, okay, what about him? What about Sean Ryan? What about Isaiah Esdale? But like Ryan and Esdale are pretty pedestrian players. I think they're reliable, but they didn't do anything that made you say, man, I really miss that. So that's a tough one for me. I was a big Daryl Porter fan. Like I just believed in his pedigree, but I mean he was also kind of smallish and just doesn't fit what they're trying to do on defense this year, which is run around, be long, and play man. So that's a tough one. They're thin at linebacker, and say what you will about Josh Chandler-Samito, but like he played on Saturdays, so maybe he'd be a great depth guy, or maybe he would start and give you depth. So just some obvious ones that maybe aren't so obvious there too. But I don't know. Would you count Lynn J. Dixon? Like if they need like a little burner in the backfield, I don't know. That'd be interesting. But I like this question because they did lose so many, and it makes you think like, okay, well they clearly are hurting because of this, but maybe they're not because they have recruited well, they developed well. The one that like just stands out to me now, and again, I said this at the time, like this didn't seem like a big loss, but you need players like this just because, is TJ Banks. I thought he was a good player last year, like not a star, maybe miscast, but they did have to stretch him out from like a backup role to extended playing time, and he performed. Like he became a good blocker. You could throw him the ball and he would do some things, but they just don't have tight end play right now. And this is something that we heard late in camp, and it definitely was on the field Thursday, is that they need something somewhat at tight end. They got a ton of Mike O'Loughlin. Credit to him for playing north of 50 snaps and for being there, making plays at the end of the game. But to do two tight end stuff or consistently do one tight end stuff, you're going to have guys you can constantly have out there, and they don't. And then like initially, I didn't even think about this, but when I was looking at the list of players who had gone, trying to remember, it just occurred to me like, man, your program needs guys like TJ Banks. Those are depth guys who can fill in and start. Those are people who can kind of give you value at a position that you might not realize until you don't have it. And now that you don't have a TJ Banks there, and this is not to completely cast aside Brian Palendi right now, but is the game different if they're a little bit bigger and stronger at tight end? I don't know, maybe, but I think you have fewer worries if they have a greater contingency at tight end.
That is one heck of an off-the-wall pick. But, I mean, if you talk about like one game, like at least as far as Thursday night is concerned, and you can believe it. Like if what you're looking at is just Thursday night, because that was bad. Like it was bad what you saw at tight end on Thursday night, at least as far as the blocking was concerned. Brian Palendi came in here and he was known as, this guy blocks. We don't know if he can catch, but he blocks. He's one of the best blockers in the country. 34.0 pass blocking grade from PFF. Gave up a sack. Nearly, I think the sack that he gave up, that was the one he just got destroyed when they were on their own 1 yard line. And that was when, I believe that was when, or maybe they were on their 3, because that was when Daniels got strip sacked and fumbled on the 1, and West Virginia recovered. That was Palendi, who just let his man go right by him. And even on run blocking, 44.0 run blocking grade from PFF. So rough day for a guy that was supposed to be known as a blocking tight end.
Tough for him. Tough debut. I'm not sure he was the best blocker in the country, but maybe he was the best one available. But they definitely talked him up. But is Banks a weird answer? Sure. Is Matthews a weird answer? Sure. But I think if you think about the offseason story, is, oh my gosh, all the transfers are going to be in such danger. It's really not obvious. Like there's not an obvious answer to this one here. And if you're talking about depth guys, like a backup tight end or a backup defensive back, flexibility in formations or flexibility in packages in the defense, I feel like that's correctable. And you're not hurting because of who you don't have. You're just hurting because it's not quite there yet. And that maybe is a good perspective on their roster, and in particular, the additions they brought in to make things better than they could be.
We've, as usual, gone longer than expected here, but there's one question that actually several people asked some version of, so we'll go with that right now. I'll read RBC WVU's version of the question. Win-loss aside, how did you feel about the performance of the team? Meet, exceed, or less than expectations? And I'll add on to it because this is what others had asked. Does it change your perception of the rest of the season?
All right, so I thought the difference in the season for them, whether they be 6-6 or north or south of that, would be could they win a game that they weren't supposed to, or would they lose games they weren't supposed to? And I kind of figured that if this team's experience, maturity, all this thing about, yeah, we have new players, but they're actually older, and then they actually do have quite a few returning players that are older players, that they could go into different places or they could play in tight situations and not do what has been kind of synonymous with the Brown brand of football so far and just not make the plays or contribute to their own demise. And that didn't happen Thursday. But that doesn't mean that like you kind of turn on the team, at least in my opinion here. I thought they'd be 7-5 and they would lose. So right now, like they're 0-1 and they're haven't done anything that's terribly surprised me, but they also kind of fit into the canister I'd set aside for them, which was that they made the plays that did not win in the game. So I can't figure out, however, if that was a game they were supposed to win and they didn't, or if that was a game that they lost that they had no business losing. I'm just not sure where they're at on that one. Is it did they give one away or do they almost get one they shouldn't have? I'm not sure. We'll see. I do feel better about their offense. The quarterback, now that you've seen it live, you just tell. You can tell like it looks the way it's supposed to look. It lifts up the offense. It gives you a chance, and you can go down and score. You can make third down plays. You can almost get a 4th and 16 completion, but like the quarterback is going to be fine. The offensive line, I think, will come together, and then the defensive front is going to be good. So those are things that you thought were going to be, if not strengths, then maybe the difference between a couple of wins if they weren't strengths. And so far, so good. I think that's probably promising there too. And I said this in the post game too. I thought they did a pretty good job protecting, hiding, managing their weaknesses until, for example, the secondary, they just ran out of options and time and guys, and they kind of got hurt a little bit there too. But can they continue to do that? What are their weaknesses? Can they manage them? We'll see. But I feel probably more confident in my prediction that I think their offense is going to be okay and their defense should be as well, and that the fate of their season is going to be winning games that they shouldn't or losing games that they shouldn't. I'm just not sure which one Thursday was.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think, leading up, we both picked when we both made our picks. What was that, like right before fall camp? We both said 7-5. I think we might have had a game or two flip flop, but we both said 7-5. And then the week leading up to the season, I hedged up to 8-4 in part because mostly because of JT Daniels. If you have an elite quarterback, I felt, hey, that's worth an extra win. That it's going to 8-4 is going to probably sound too sunshiny for a lot of people, but I felt if you have an elite quarterback, that's worth an extra win. And that one extra win was going to be this game basically. And it didn't happen, but I saw the quarterback that I thought, or I heard, or we heard like down the stretch was special. And so that still makes me feel strongly that West Virginia can finish, if this is a loss and I had 8-4, then 7-5. I think that's very reasonable. If they go to 8-4, like that wouldn't surprise me either. Because again, I think this team is good. I think it has its weaknesses, but I think it has that quarterback. It has those couple of elite players on both sides of the ball. One being JT Daniels on one side, and I know some people might not want to hear this right now, but Bryce Ford Wheaton is another one on offense. And then on defense, I think you got a couple guys, Dante Stills especially, that can really make it special and make the big plays that kind of flip a game or two. And that's why I still think 7-5, 8-4 is realistic for this team, even after an opening loss.
You had them losing to Tech.
I know. And then I think, I had them. I had the beginning of the year. I think when we did our thing pre-fall camp, I was like, hey, they go crazy and win at Pitt and then lose in Blacksburg. And then when I updated it to 8-4, I added in the win in Blacksburg to make it 8-4, right before the season started. So this Pitt one's the one that's got me though.
My whole thesis about their maturity and their experience, that's going to be tested, I think, certainly in Blacksburg, but probably this week too, because I think that Kansas is going to come in feeling really good about itself and probably not scared of West Virginia, but maybe not knowing what West Virginia knows about itself. And if they just apply what they believe to be true, what they're saying in Twitter videos or post-game news conferences, then they should be okay here. But then, like, they would weather a storm about, kind of a disappointing loss and then, a conference opener against a team they're familiar with. And then all of a sudden that Tech game becomes a lot easier too. So listen, we'll have answers before too long for sure.
Yep. Well, and speaking of answers, I will have the rest of these answers because, again, you guys, not surprisingly, after a season opening loss to a rival, had, 50 questions for this one. So, 50 posts with a few having multiple questions in it, so more than 50 questions. I will get to the rest of these in written form and have them up Tuesday morning before we get to meet with Neil Brown, some coordinators, some players. And again, these are questions from our VIP members. If you are not a VIP member, you'd like to ask these questions or you like to read the answers on our message board and a whole lot more, 75% off. Right now, like it either ends tonight at midnight or tomorrow. I think I can't remember which one. So might want to jump on it now because this is like that Black Friday only kind of deal, and it's happening this weekend. So get on it while you still can. Come get all the coverage you can for an entire year.
Lots going on. The gap between games closes, I guess, officially tomorrow. Noon news conference. Neil Brown, coordinators, players will ask a lot of questions that we can't yet answer until then. I'm Mike Casazza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
Talk to you next time.